After talks in the White House, President Zelensky said that within 10 days, Ukraine could have guarantees for its security from Russia. Donald Trump said they would be very good. We've been getting lots of reaction this morning. The Labour government minister, Torsten Bell, told us there'd been lots of progress on security guarantees for Ukraine. But the former Conservative Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, pointed out that Putin hasn't changed his position on NATO membership for Ukraine, taking over the Donbass or allowing Western troops to act as peacekeepers. You might say that he is still net on those. Sybil Browder is a high-profile Kremlin critic and author of Red Notice, How I Became Putin's #1 Enemy. Sybil, so far we have had warm words, but actually in terms of security guarantees, it's been vague so far.
It's been vague so far, but I would point out one thing that's far more important than security guarantees, which is, as you mentioned from Ben Wallace, I'm not sure that Putin has any intention of actually following through on any of these intimations that he wants peace. Putin has been very explicit and actually very transparent that his whole objective with Ukraine is to basically destroy the independence of a sovereign country and make it part of Russia. And I don't think he's altered that goal. And in all of this talk about security guarantees is kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Is there any genuine desire from Putin to end this war? And I would say 100% not. I think Putin wants to continue the war, and he's just playing games with Trump and with the international community right now.
If Putin hasn't altered his goal and Ukraine hasn't been able to make much more progress than they have already, and they've lost 20% of their territory, and Ukraine's allies haven't provided them with enough support to push Russia further back, is Trump being a bit of a realist to say, right now, if we could stop and pause the front line where it is, that is better than this continuing?
Well, the front line is effectively paused. I mean, the amount of territory that Russia is able to get versus the number of soldiers that are dying to get that territory is de minimis. It would take them literally decades at this rate to take over all of Ukraine. And I don't think that Putin has the resources to do that. And so I think that the narrative which Putin wants everybody to believe is that he's winning. We just have to do everything we can to stop him from winning. I don't think that that's true. I think it's actually effectively a stalemate, and the stalemate is effectively being put at a huge cost to him. 1,000 to 1,500 soldiers a day are dying. The amount of money they're spending, the cost to the Russian economy because of all the sanctions. And so the idea that we have to suddenly capitulate and surrender Ukraine, I think is a fallacy. And Ukraine is doing pretty well by itself. Ukraine needs more resources. They need more weapons. And most importantly, and something which Trump talked about up until a couple of days ago, is if we were to cut off Russia's ability to profit from their oil. And what I mean by that is they get a couple $100 billion a year selling oil to the Chinese, the Indians, and the Turks. And Trump had threatened to tariff those countries where they bought Russian oil. If he followed through on that, and if we in the United Kingdom and EU assisted him with that, Putin would run out of money, and then he would be desperately trying to negotiate a fair and proper peace deal.
That's a lot of ifs, though, isn't it? Donald Trump promised to do many things. He said there would be severe consequences for Putin if he didn't agree to end the war. By last Friday, he said there'd be severe consequences if there wasn't a ceasefire. Those consequences haven't materialized, and Donald Trump is now not even insisting that there is a ceasefire. For now, this is all playing into Putin's hands.
It is absolutely. But the one thing that we can comfort ourselves with is that Trump has kind of lost his leverage in this whole game because he stopped funding Ukraine. And so he's no longer providing military aid to Ukraine. It's all coming out of our pockets now, the weapons and so on. He's perfectly happy for American companies to sell their weapons to Ukraine, but is paid for by the European Union and paid for by the UK and paid for by other allies. And so it's not as if he can tell Ukraine, I insist that you surrender. I think what everybody is trying to do right now is to try to keep Trump onside enough so that he doesn't do something crazy like say, I'm withdrawing from NATO or something like that. I think everyone wants to just keep this guy calm so he doesn't do something absolutely crazy. But he can't insist that Ukraine gives up their sovereignty. He can't insist that Europe and the UK have to face off Russia by ourselves in a war with Russia because Ukraine is no longer in the game. All he can do is sort of hold these meetings and make all these grand statements. At the end of the day, Ukraine is going to decide what they want to do, and what they want to do is not give up their sovereignty. They don't want to become part of Russia, and they know what it's like to become part of Russia because when certain parts of Ukraine were occupied, we saw what it looked like, and it was all the women were raped, all the men were killed, and all the children were kidnapped. And I think the Ukrainians understand that being at war is better than that eventuality.
But how much leverage do the Ukrainians have if the US say, actually, we don't provide support in the same material way? Because what Putin wants is peace. He wants this to be over. What Trump wants is for this to be over.
Trump wants it to be over, but at the same time, if he's not paying for it, then what leverage does he have? The only leverage he has is the leverage to do something completely outrageous and crazy. And the reason why we ended up with 8 heads of state showing up in Washington was just to try to calm him down and to placate him and to flatter him so he doesn't do something crazy. And he didn't do something crazy yesterday, thank God.
Sybil Browder, thank you very much. High-profile Kremlin critic, author also of Red Notice, How I Became Putin's #1 Enemy.
What today boils down to, I think, is the US promised very good security guarantees. The UK government believes them. Does anyone else believe them? How much are we right to believe them is the question we cannot answer, but is the question that is being very much asked today.
President Macron of France, who's been with me from the beginning,
really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees, of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees, fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came to security. With you coming alongside, the US alongside what we've already developed, I think we could take a really important step forward today. A historic step, actually, could come out of this meeting in terms of security for Ukraine and security in Europe.
Good to see you. Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
President. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for all of the wonderful things that bring success, and thank you very much.
We spoke about it, and we will speak more about security guarantees. This is very important. That
pipeline security guarantees.
Complicated negotiations, and to be honest,
we're united. So that's why it's a very good
2 years to have a peace which is the only Ukrainian problem. But it's also
that's a pretty unusual thing.
Microphone.
Is there a date for you to meet with President Putin of Russia?
Sorry, what? Yeah, what?
Is there a date for you to meet with President Putin?
The date?
Yes.
No, we don't have any date. We don't have any date. We just confirmed after this productive meeting with President and then with all our colleagues, with the partners, we confirmed that we are ready for a trilateral meeting. And if Russia proposed to President of the United States bilateral, and then we will see the result of bilateral, and then it can be the trilateral. So I said always, so Ukraine will never stop on the way to peace, and we are ready for any kind of formats, but on the level of leaders.